is that our attachment to our senses, our seeing, our hearing, our smelling, our touching, our tasting, and to our thinking mind, our thinking, these are the vehicles through which we're used to receiving information. And they keep us focused on form all the time, on things. And because we live in a world of form or things, we tend to think of ourselves as form and things. And there is a very deep Western predisposition to identify with your thoughts and think you are your thoughts. That who you think you are is who you are. Okay? Now, just imagine that you are a large blob, and that one tiny bit of that blob is form. And there is another part, a much larger part, that is formless. But how would you know about it? You can't hear it. You can't see it. You can't smell it. You can't taste it. You can't touch it. You can't even think about it, because thinking, by its nature, thinks about something. It takes an object. And what this part of you that has no form is, it's not an object. So how would you know of its existence? And if you are totally attached to the fact that the only way you can know about what is through your senses and your thinking mind, you decide that part of you that has no form isn't. Now, this is a very this is about as deep as mysticism gets, actually. Like when Einstein said, and I've quoted this many times, when he said, I didn't arrive at my understanding of the primary laws of the universe, those understanding of those relationships, through my rational mind. What I understand him to have meant was that he went beyond his thinking mind and beyond his sense experiences, and he went into, here's where the words start to fall apart. He went into some way of being with what is. Heinlein talks about it as grokking, where you become one with it. There's no longer subject-object. There's no longer thinking about. There's no longer relationship. It is as if I am it. He became E equals mc squared. And then he came back and he articulated it because he was a physicist. In the same way Bach went and became music and then comes back and imperfectly, pretty good, but still what comes to the human ear isn't the divine sound. He articulates the Brandenburg Concerti or whatever, or Mozart or Da Vinci or Michelangelo or Picasso. Blake. It feels to me very much like we are like the drunk, the image that's very familiar by now to everybody. It's been used so much. The drunk who's looking for the watch under the streetlight, and everybody says, they help him, and then they say, well, where'd you lose the watch? And he's set up in the alley. They say, well, why aren't you looking there? He says, because there's more light here. But you don't find the watch. And the thing is, when you keep looking for the deepest truths of your being through your senses and your thinking mind, because that's what you're used to using, you don't find what you're looking for. And you always feel like you're one thought away from where the action is. You always feel slightly cut off from being in the moment, being here fully. Because it is not what here is. I mean, And yet, what's bizarre is we are all functioning with that intuitive, non-conceptual information all the time, but we have no way of noticing that we're doing it. And therefore, we relegate it to irrelevance. Is this too weird, or are you hearing what I'm saying? I mean, I am convinced now, in these studies that show how many people had mystical experiences, staggering numbers of people have had mystical experiences, but most of them have treated them as irrelevant or trivial, or I was out of my mind, or I was drunk, or I didn't know what happened, or I went to the movie and I was confused, or whatever. They have ways of denigrating it, of treating it as irrelevant, because they cannot gain conceptual control of it. They can't get control of it with their minds all the time. Now, what is scary is when you recognize that the vast part of yourself is not conceptual and is not knowable by the usual methods of knowing, that in a sense you can be it, but you can't know it. It's like the Tao says, the student learns by daily increments. You learn a little each day. The way is gained by daily loss. Loss upon loss until, the way. You clean away the conceptual structures. You clean them away, you clean them away, you clean them away until it's like regaining innocence or having innocence. The innocence of being just with what is, without the conceptual overlay, without the control that comes from knowing you know. I mean, look at how wedded we are to science as a religion, which says what we want to do is build a body of knowledge so we know we know. But what happens if the major stuff of which our happiness and ultimate survival and existence, if that is rooted in something that you can't know you know? What are we going to do? What if it is not amenable to the scientific method? What are we going to do then? Should we reject it? Or is it possible for us to train ourselves, to discipline ourselves, to go beyond our own mind, our own thinking mind, to go beyond our own attachment to our senses and our thinking mind? Is it possible for us? See, Western cognitive psychology doesn't deal with this at all, by the way. It talks about what you think about. It assumes an identity between you and the thinker. Cogito ergo sum. But just imagine now, how are you going to get through to that part of yourself which is not knowable by your mind, by your thinking mind, by your analytic intellect? Without putting your intellect down, it's a beautiful servant but a lousy master. And you treat it as a master most of the time in order to sort of control the universe. It's wonderful to be able to think. It's too bad if you can't stop it. It's like the Sorcerer's Apprentice. It just keeps going on and on and on and on. You can't stop it. When after some years of spiritual practice, when I started to not think, my first reaction, having been when I was a professor at Harvard, thinking was the stuff I got paid for. And I remember, I couldn't waste time not thinking. I remember flying, and I had a little Cessna airplane, and I was flying across the United States, and I had a clipboard on my thigh so I could write down significant thoughts while I was flying, so I wouldn't waste time flying and not thinking all the time, because I could think up research proposals to put into NIMH. And when I first started to not think, when I first would have these moments where I just my mind was empty. When I started to think again, the first thought was, I took too many drugs. I think I've blown my brain. There it goes. Too bad. Oh, God. Well, they were right. They were right after all. And I got frightened because ever since I was a child, I was taught thinking is better. Think more, you're better. And your analytic mind can solve all problems. And look what a mess it has created for us. Look what a mess it creates. Because it doesn't recognize the deeper harmony that exists and the deeper unity that exists across peoples and between us and nature, all those levels. It just doesn't do it. It tries to figure it all out, and look what it does. Every act it does to try to heal it, it keeps creating more problems. And at first, when I started not to notice I wasn't thinking, I got frightened, as you can see. And then I remember going through the next stage where I thought, well, if that's what's happened, that's what's happened. I've blown my mind. What am I going to not worry about it? I mean, that's the way it is. I'll just be sort of a dull normal from here on in, and I'll just be whatever it is that I'm going to be from here on in. And then I began to notice that even though my mind was empty, when something was necessary, when I wasn't too frightened to block it and flicker, if I just trusted it, when I needed it, it was there, without my constantly rehearsing it all the time. I mean, I used to get down the street, and you'd look and you'd say, there's books, and there's a camera, and there's a shoe, and there's a tree, and there's a car. I mean, your mind is constantly doing that. You're constantly reassuring yourself you know that the world is out there the way you think it is. And your mind can't stop. It's like this incredible addiction to labeling so you think you know where you are in this complete. And it's really whistling in the dark. And what's so frightening about dying for many people is that they are going to lose the control of their thinking mind. They can't think their way through that one. And they know that at some point their thinking mind is going to let go. And then what? And that's why in the Eastern traditions, you spend your life learning how to extricate yourself from your thinking mind and from your identification with your senses, so that at the moment of death, there isn't that panic of loss of control because you've already died. And when Christ said, lest ye die, ye cannot be born again, we're talking about that. We're talking about dying into who you think you are, the dying of who you think you are, then you are what you are. This is very weird stuff I'm saying, and I mean, if you were just walked in from outside, it would sound like a course in psychosis by a case.